It's no secret that property prices are rising. It's a global phenomenon that's happening in Europe and also happening in Spain. Why is this happening? And are we actually measuring it the right way? Today, we're going to be talking about everything you need to know in order to understand what's happening in global markets and specifically in Spain. Watch this video if you want the unfiltered, no fluff version of what's going on. Let me tell you about what we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, why property prices are increasing and how they're going to continue to do so. But the structure of this conversation or the structure of this video is going to be the following. Why we're doing this video. Then we're going to be talking about property prices increasing, the role of inflation over the next 5-10 years, what the forecast for both of those scenarios look like, and what our overview of the current situation is. So, first of all, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kian Bennani. I'm the founder of Hi Homes. And over the last 12 years, I've helped hundreds of clients secure property on the coast of Malaga. Now, let's move on to why we're doing this video. We did a video last year with my colleague Kim, where we talked about the Spanish property market and we talked about prices, what our forecast was, if prices are going down, if prices are going up. And it's one of our most popular videos in terms of views and interactions. And it's really been great to read all these comments, all these different opinions everyone has about where the Spanish property market is heading. And I've really enjoyed reading through these comments. And I thought this video was going to be really useful because let's face it, property prices worldwide are just increasing. And it's the same for Spain. And if we zoom into our place, well, our coast, which is Costa del Sol, our estimated, property growth on average is 4%. Now, why are property prices increasing? Well, there's a few reasons. It's the organic growth of the real estate market. Some areas are, forecasted to grow more. It's not the same to talk about prime locations like Marbella than it is to talk about areas with super capital appreciation growth, like areas outside Malaga, Estepona, East, West. Every single area has its own forecast. But let's just, for the sake of this argument, or the sake of this video, talk about an average appreciation of the market organically of 4%. Now, that's massive. If we just talk about in accumulative terms, in 5 years, that's 21%. And in 10 years, that's 48%. Now, let me put that into perspective for you. If you're buying a property, for easy numbers, that's worth 1 million euros today, just with its market natural appreciation forecast, that property is going to be closer to 1.5 million euros in 10 years from now. We're talking about appreciation and we're talking about the reasons behind property prices increasing. While one of the main factors driving prices in Spain is the limited supply compared to the demand, and in markets like Costa del Sol, where foreign buyers are some of the main players and some of the driving factors in making this market appreciate. Why is that? Because foreign buyers still find so much value in this real estate market compared to their own home country. It's not the same to buy a 400,000, 500,000 euro contemporary apartment in Estepona, which offers all these facilities, than in your own domestic country where that sort of money will not really buy you the same sort of property. So, Marbella, Costa del Sol, Malaga is also competing with other markets, not just its own. People are comparing our property, what this market has to offer, compared to their home market. And that has a lot to do with how this property market is appreciating. So one thing is the supply and demand. The other thing is the kind of buyers. Another very important player in the appreciation of real estate and the increased forecasted growth of real estate markets is inflation. And this goes more in line with the general global reasons why real estate is appreciating. Inflation is a massive player and it's not talked about enough. And this is what most of this video is going to be talking about. Inflation in real estate. So let's just talk in Spain. In Spain, inflation is forecasted this year to be around the 2.2%. Let's just say that on average, it's going to be around 2.5% yearly. Over the next 5 years, the accumulative inflation impact is around 13.1%. Over 10 years, that's 28.1%. So in very easy terms, if you have 1 million euros in the bank, within 10 years, your buying power is no longer 1 million euros. Your buying power is more like 720,000. Exactly. So I just made sure my math's correct. 1 million euros minus 28%. That means in 10 years, the buying power of 1 million euro is 720,000 euros. So it's two forces that are going in the opposite direction. inflation going downwards and property prices going upwards. So if I put a graph on the screen, this shows the cumulative impact of inflation over the next 5 and 10 years. And then we're also showing the cumulative effect of property appreciation and the forecast appreciation of property over the next 5 and 10 years. So let's say that property prices hedge against inflation. Again, this is really general. It depends on the market we're talking about, macroeconomics, geopolitics, and so on. But generally, what we've seen in Spain is that when inflation is around 2%, property prices increase that plus a bit more. That's generally how it works, okay? So property is a perfect way to hedge yourself against inflation. And this is super important. When we have a worldwide market with rampaging inflation, where money value is literally plummeting, the question I have for you guys, and this is the interesting thing, is are property prices going up or is your money value going down? And this is like a super key factor. And people don't really think about this, but with a cumulative inflation of, let's say, 28% in 10 years' time, your purchase power is going to be 28% less, while properties are going to appreciate by 48.6%. So property prices are increasing a lot faster than what you'd expect, but one of the driving factors is money value plummeting. That is, in essence, the big question to be asked. Will property prices keep on rising? Well, yes. I mean, if property keeps on hedging against inflation, it's naturally going to increase, first of all, by the individual factors that drive that market. But inflation is going to really also be a driving factor of that property market. Property markets are going to naturally hedge against that inflation. The question is property value going up or is money value going down? The answer is a bit of both. Value of property is surging in certain areas and value of money is also plummeting. So a combination of these things. When people ask us, what do you see this market doing in the next few years? Well, it's very easy to say that the market's going to appreciate very much in line with inflation plus a bit more. So a property market like Costa del Sol will appreciate up to 8% in 2 years, with your money devaluating on average around 5% in the same period. So there are two forces in opposite direction. This is a super interesting moment to talk about bank finance in Spain. We recently did an interview with Mark Elliott from Fluent Finance. We'll link that up here in the video. For investors at this moment that are looking to buy in Spain to invest and also to hedge against inflation, buying property with a Spanish bank might be the perfect solution for people like yourselves. So just to finish on inflation, something which I find quite interesting is a few people on the comment section on this video, which I mentioned earlier, allude to property prices have never been so expensive in Spain. Yeah, but guess what? Not only property prices, the price of a simple coffee anywhere is €3.50, where 20 years ago, 15 years ago was €1.20. A pair of shoes on average, 80, 90 euros. Any crappy car is now 20,000 euros. The value of money is going down. It's not necessarily the value of the object going up. On this subject, I read a really interesting tweet by an economist in Spain. And her title, I'm going to translate it to English, says, "What if I tell you that property price is down by 80% since the year 2000? And she goes on to say, in the year 2000, average price of a property was 100,000 euros. At that time, gold was 310 euros per ounce. You needed 322 ounces of gold to buy one property. In 2025, that same property is 171,000 euros, where gold is at 2,917 euros per ounce. Today, you need 58 ounces of gold to buy that same property. It's not the value of property that's going up. It's the value of our fiat currency going down. And this is a super interesting way of adding a different dynamic or a different dimension to the view. We always compare property to the value of our fiat currency, euro, but it's really interesting to peg it to a different value such as gold. This is not 100% accurate, but it just gives you another dimension or a different look on the same thing. Property prices are going up, but a big part of it is the value of your money going down. I would like to finish with the following analogy. Myself, I've invested in properties in my life, commercial, residential. Holding cash, in my opinion, is like having a melting piece of ice, which basically goes to show that the more time you hold on to cash, the less buying power you have. If you are holding and waiting to buy property because you think that in 2, 3, 4 years, prices might come down, everything is suggesting otherwise. At the moment, we are in a new era where everything in our economy costs more thanks to our very, very bad friend of inflation. So the faster you put it into something, not only property, but any sort of investment that is giving you a return or is appreciating, you're not losing buying power. And that is the key to proper investing. Do not lose your buying power. Do not stack your cash. Make sure that your cash is invested in something that's giving you a return or that's appreciating. Be ahead of inflation. Inflation is actually our worst enemy. So I think that's a wrap. We talked inflation, we talked property. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you are new to this space or if you find this content useful, press the button, subscribe to the High Homes YouTube channel, and we're going to keep you guys posted with information just like this, relevant information to your property search or to your investments in Spain, in Europe, wherever you are. And remember guys, in property and investments, knowledge is your best investment.